how to make oatmeal. Hi, I'm Sylvia from Vintage Kitchen Vixen, where I share tips for simple living, creating memorable gatherings, and preparing wholesome and traditional recipes with a vintage twist. And today I am going to be sharing 30 foods that I bet your great-grandmother never bought. Now, if you prefer food made from scratch as opposed to store-bought food, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you are new to the kitchen, welcome. I hope you will hit subscribe and that bell notification so that you'll never miss an episode of the kitchen. So first of all, I probably don't need to tell you this, but making your own food from scratch is so much healthier. It's cheaper, and it tastes way better than anything that you'll ever buy from the store, unless of course you're buying like good quality food from the store. But when it comes to something like salad dressings, you don't have a whole lot of options. Like, most of those salad dressings are made with canola oil, and here, I already told you what the first one is. But we're not ready to get into that yet. There's one saying, I'm sure you've heard it, but good food takes time, and that is absolutely the case with a lot of the things that we're going to cover on this list today. A lot of these foods are often bought at the store because not only is it easier, it is more convenient. Good food really does take time with a lot of these. I'm not suggesting that you stop buying everything on this list, especially if you are new at making food from scratch. If you don't cook a lot, it is unrealistic to say, hey, I'm going to stop buying these 30 foods right now today. Some of these things on the list I still buy just because it is convenient, but I know that I can save money and that it's healthier. And yes, time is also money. It's not that hard to do to make these things that I'm going to be covering today. So one thing that will really help you in making more food from scratch is setting culinary goals for yourself. This is something I do for myself. Whenever I read a recipe book, or if there's something new that I want to try and explore, like when I started my fermentation journey, I made a list of all these different fermentation projects I wanted to embark on, like making my first batch of sauerkraut and pickles. And I've made all of these things. So it's just about setting goals. So maybe that's something you can do for yourself. Another thing I suggest is batching. Batching is a huge time saver. So if you dedicate a weekend day to making a large batch of, let's say, tortillas, that's something you can do. And it's even easier when you get the family involved. I often sit my 3-year-old on the kitchen counter and he helps me work, but he's also learning at the same time, and he's seeing what it takes to make food from scratch, and one day he's going to be making the tortillas. Anyhow, without any further ado, let's get into it. So number one, I already alluded to it, it is make your own salad dressing. The easiest salad dressing you can make is squeezing lemon or drizzling balsamic on your salad, getting some olive oil on there and seasoning it with salt and pepper. But I mean, if you want something a little bit more complex, vinaigrettes aren't hard to make, and neither are some of the creamier dressings, like a blue cheese dressing or even a Caesar dressing. I do have videos on how to make vinaigrettes and how to make a Caesar salad dressing, for example. Even books like Sally Fallon Morell's Nourishing Traditions, where you just have a bunch of different recipes in one book. I mean, that book has wonderful recipes for salad dressings, because one thing that I find with salad dressings is that they often have a lot of sugar, like dextrose, sucrose, all those things that end in ose. That's sugar. Another one that I don't like that is in most commercial salad dressings is canola oil. Now, a lot of people argue that canola oil is healthy and that it's good for you, but I disagree. And if you want to know why, I do have a link to a Weston A. Price article below that you can check out on why canola oil isn't all that it's hyped up to be. Number two is oatmeal. Make your own oatmeal. Nothing could be simpler than starting your day with a bowl of oatmeal. Something that drives me crazy is when I see people spending money on these tiny little packets of oatmeal that are full of sugar and God knows what else. I get that those packets make everything super simple in the morning. You just grab your packet and you have breakfast whenever you need it. But there is a simple way around that, and it's just measuring out rolled oats, good old-fashioned rolled oats, into a container or into a reusable bag. And then you just dump it in a bowl and you pour hot water over it, you cover it, let the water absorb for like 5 minutes, and then you can sweeten it with something natural like maple syrup or honey or coconut palm sugar, like your sweetener of choice. And you can put walnuts in there, you can put chopped fruit. Another option is to make a giant batch of steel cut oats. I like fermented steel cut oats, and you just make a huge batch to last you throughout the week. And the other option is to make overnight oats. So you have a bunch of jars of that in the fridge that you can grab and go so that you're on your way with your instant oatmeal. Number 3, something I know my great-grandmother never bought, is pancake mix. When I was researching for this topic, I came across an article of things that you shouldn't bother making from scratch, and pancake mix was on that list. And I didn't understand because, I learned how to make pancakes when I was 5. When I was 5 years old, I would mix pancakes and I would make them with my dad. If a 5-year-old can make pancakes, so can anyone. If you don't have time to measure the flour, the sugar, the baking powder, the salt, then you can always measure those ingredients and make a big batch of pancake mix that you can put in a jar. You shake it up, and when you're ready to make pancakes, you scoop out a couple of scoops of that and you add an egg or two and some milk or water, and there you have pancake batter. Number 4 is broth. There is a South American proverb, and it is good broth resurrects the dead, and it is so true. Nothing beats a good homemade broth or a stock. The two are very similar. I personally keep all of my kitchen scraps, and I have a big freezer bag in my freezer for whenever I have a chicken carcass from quartering a chicken, and then I just put everything into a big pot. I add water and I let that simmer for hours, and then I strain it and I portion it off into yogurt containers that I collect, and it goes into the freezer. So I basically always have stock, and it's free because these are things that people usually throw out. I really got into making my own broth when I stopped buying the cheap version of broth at the store, because I was really thrown off that a lot of broths are, they're sodium heavy, and even the ones that don't have a lot of sodium, they have ingredients like pear puree. I'm not joking. I wish I was joking. So I started buying organic, like really good broth from a store. But that got expensive, especially since I was going through a couple of boxes a week. That's $8 that I'm saving every week, and I make broth for free now. Number 5, bake your own bread. And if you're not much of a baker, if you can't be bothered with dough hands or proofing or baking, if you've tried baking bread before and you've messed it up royally, you still don't have an excuse. Just get yourself a bread maker. It'll do all the work for you. You just put all of the ingredients in, and then you push a button and you have bread. It doesn't get easier than that, apart from going to the store. If I do buy store-bought bread, I get it from the bakery, but for the most part, I have sourdough starter in my fridge at any given time, so when I notice I'm running low on bread, I'll bring that starter out, I'll feed it and let that bubble up and get good and active so I can make a bread. I generally make more than one loaf at a time so that I have bread for the week, so I totally have a baking day. Number 6, this is something my great-grandmother probably never made. I don't know if she even heard of it because she raised her family during pre- and post-war Germany, so I don't think Nan really made an appearance there, but that's something that's a staple in our house. It's wonderful when I don't know what we're making for dinner, and if I have naan, I can just put some sauce, cheese, and toppings on there, and we had easy naan pizzas. You can also use them as sandwiches or serve them with eggs. And they're not that hard to make. You just mix your dough. You can make a huge batch at once, and then you just roll them out and toss them on the skillet. So just double or triple a batch and freeze it. Number 7 is something I alluded to already, and that's tortillas. Now, people are usually either impressed that I make my own tortillas or they think I am nuts. But whenever I'm in the store and I am tempted to buy a bag of tortillas just because I know it would be so much easier, I just look at the ingredients label and I don't buy them because there's usually a couple of ingredients that I can't pronounce, and that's one of my rules. If I see an ingredient on a list that I can't pronounce, I generally don't want that in my body, so I leave it be. Now granted, when you're making tortillas, they usually end up a lot more rustic looking than the pretty uniform ones that you get in a plastic bag. Oh, by the way, that's something I forgot to mention. By making a lot of your own food from scratch at home, you're reducing plastic waste and other wasteful products quite significantly. So there's this whole self-sustainability factor in there as well, because Lord knows there's enough in our landfills without adding more to it unnecessarily. My tortillas are not pretty. They're not perfect circles. One day I'm going to get myself a tortilla press because I make tortillas often enough that it warrants a tortilla press. I'm just waiting to find one in the thrift store. Maybe one day I'll get one for Christmas, who knows. I usually make kefir tortillas, but another kind of tortilla that I really like, I make it with spinach or kale. And it's a very easy way to sneak greens into my 3-year-old. So I'll just put a huge handful of spinach or kale into the blender with the water. I'll blend that up and I have these vividly green tortillas and it's great. Number 8, our great-grandmothers did not buy Bisquick. They did not buy instant biscuits. They measured out flour, they cut butter into that flour, and they made their own flaky biscuits. And it's not a hard thing to do. My husband usually makes them when we are out of bread. It always feels like a special treat. And you can mix cheese in there or herbs, and you can really play with the dough and make something that you'd never be able to find in a store. Number 9 is breadcrumbs. I personally stopped buying breadcrumbs the day I looked at a label and noticed sugar in the ingredients. And I did not understand why there was sugar in the breadcrumbs. It's a popular brand. I haven't bought breadcrumbs since noticing that. And it's pretty easy to make your own. Whenever I have stale bread that nobody wants to eat, I just let it dry out completely and I put it in a container. Another thing you can do is just toast the bread that you need, and then you chop it up really fine, run it through a food processor, and bake those crumbs again. You just run your stale or toasted bread through a food processor, get that really fine, and that's how you make breadcrumbs. Number 10, similar note, croutons. I grew up not liking croutons at all because all I ever knew was the little stale bread cubes that came in a box that were put onto Caesar salads for some reason. So I was the kind of person that, I guess I still am if I eat out, but I'm the kind of person who would completely pass up on the croutons. Bacon, yes. Croutons, no. Keep them away from me. But then I started making my own from scratch, and oh my gosh, they taste so much better. So whether it's stale bread, it's one way to use up stale bread, or you can use fresh bread and toast it up, and then you can toss it in oil and herbs, salt, pepper, or you can just melt a bunch of butter in your skillet, toss your ripped up bread in there, and let it get crispy and golden and so delicious. And you can also get some crushed garlic cloves in that butter to flavor it. It's easy and delicious. I mean, why would you ever buy croutons? Number 11, try making your own pie dough. Pie dough is one of those things that's really easy to buy at the store. You buy your shells, you have them in the freezer, and whenever you need to bake a pie, you're good to go. But why not just make your dough from scratch and roll out your dough and put them in pie shells and put those in the freezer for when you need them. Make a double or triple a recipe. I have 2 recipes. I have one for a buttery pie dough, and then I have one for a sweet pie dough. That's also very buttery. It's great for tarts. But just make a big batch of dough. I just freeze mine into discs. I saran each disc individually, and then I pop those into a freezer bag just to double protect it from freezer burn. And then it's good for at least 3 months. Number 12, cookies. I know a lot of people already bake their own cookies, but I mean, when you're at the store and you see cookies on sale, it's very tempting to pick up a pack. One thing you can do when you are baking cookies is just double or triple the batch. Again, batching saves the day almost every time. So make a really big batch of cookie dough and then portion them out. Put those balls of dough onto a parchment lined tray and freeze that tray full of cookie dough balls. Freeze that and then put all of them in a Ziploc bag. And whenever you have a hankering for cookies, pull out a half dozen, bake them, and there you go. You have portion control and you have fresh cookies. Everybody's happy. Number 13 is another one that was on the list of things that are not worth making from scratch. And this also puzzles me because it's pizza dough. Now I spent, 3 years? I spent 3 or 4 years working in the pizza industry, making dough pretty much every day. And it is easy. Like, everybody should be making their own pizza dough. You get to control the oil. Again, most commercial pizza doughs probably use canola oil instead of olive oil or something similar. And I mean, if you can't have gluten, you're so much better off making your own gluten-free pizza dough than buying one, because premiums are charged for anything that's gluten-free. And even cauliflower crusts, I mean, those are expensive too. But I've made cauliflower crusts before and they are pain to make. So that I would actually buy instead of make, because I mean, I don't think our grandmothers were making cauliflower pizza crusts anyway, so that's off the list. Pizza dough is one thing that takes a little bit of menu planning. If you are a menu planner and you are usually busy, then make your pizza dough the night before you have pizza on the menu. Let it proof in your fridge overnight, and then when you come home from work the next day, pull it out. Make sure that's the first thing you do. Pull it out from the fridge so that it can warm up, because cold dough is really hard to work. But once it warms up, you can press it into your pan and it should be a dream to work with. Normally, pizza dough takes an hour and a half to proof, but if you just put it in the fridge, it will proof overnight and you don't have to wait. Another thing you can do is make a bigger batch of pizza dough and portion it out and freeze it. And again, I would probably use it within a couple of months, but just pull it out the morning before you're going to make the pizza to let it thaw out throughout that day and then proof overnight. Number 14, make your own gravies and sauces. So if you make your own stock, this should make it super simple for you to make your own gravies and sauces. If you're roasting a chicken, or if you're making something delicious like beef rouladen, oh my gosh, that gravy is the best ever. Anyhow, if you are roasting meats, just deglaze your pan and make a gravy from that. You just pour in a little bit of wine or some broth, and then you deglaze, like you kind of scrape off all of the roasty bits. And then you bring that to a boil, add some cornstarch or something to thicken it up. Flour and butter mixed together, that's called a roux. That will also thicken up your sauce to make a gravy. And you don't have to buy a packet from the store, you don't have to buy a can. You can just make something that's pretty delicious, and it's not that hard to make. Number 15, make your own popcorn. If you are guilty of buying microwavable popcorn, please stop. Like, there's nothing good about microwavable popcorn. Get yourself an air popper, or get something like a whirly pop, which is what I use. I was given a whirly pop for Christmas one year, and I've had that for like 7 years now, 8 years, and I love it. Another thing you can do is learn how to make popcorn on the stovetop. You just add a bit of oil, you get your popping kernels, and then you just shake it, and there you have popcorn. And then you can add butter and salt, and there doesn't have to be anything sinister about your popcorn. Number 16, try making your own pesto. Traditional pesto is made during late summer when the basil harvest is flourishing. And you can freeze your pesto, you can can your pesto. I've never canned pesto, so I can't tell you the first thing about that. But freezing your pesto, you have to make sure that you do it without the cheese, because the cheese does not hold up well in the freezer. Add that after your pesto thaws. It's just basil, it's olive oil, pine nuts, and then your Parmesan cheese, and that's your own pesto, and it's so good. Just run it through a food processor. I do have a base recipe for garlic mustard pesto that I'll link to in the show notes below, and I'm linking everything that I'm mentioning. All the videos that you've seen up to now that have been playing, there are links below so that you can check those out in greater detail. So if you don't have access to pesto in early spring, you can use garlic mustard, you can use dandelion greens. If you have a lot of arugula in your fridge that's going to go bad, turn that into a pesto. And you don't need to use pine nuts, you can use walnuts, you can use almonds. I do recommend the Parmesan cheese, but you can also use something like pecorino if you don't have Parm on hand. Number 17, and I'm thinking I was very ambitious with 30, but number 17 is make your own iced tea. Now, how I make iced tea is I forget to drink my tea, and then I pour that tea in 2 bottles and I pop it in the fridge, and I call that iced tea. Like, that's as easy as it gets. But you can also make it intentionally and brew tea. And you can either do like a cold brew overnight, put a bunch of loose tea or tea bags, do a couple liters of water and put that in the fridge, or you can pour boiling water over the tea and then add the rest with cold water. And then you can even flavor it. You can make a flavored simple syrup, so you can make like a strawberry iced tea or a lemon iced tea, or you can just add honey to the hot water. You don't even have to sweeten it. It's so much healthier than the stuff that you get in stores. I mean, you can get unsweetened iced tea, and that is preferable to the iced tea that's made with high fructose corn syrup. Number 18, on a similar note, make your own juice and your own lemonade. I don't know if you've heard it been said, but you are better off eating a piece of fruit than having a glass of juice, just because juice is super concentrated in terms of how much sugar you are ingesting in one go. With a piece of fruit, you have fiber and you have the perfect amount of juice. So with that being said, if the next time you have a hankering for orange juice, just buy oranges. You can even buy them on discount sometimes if you have, like, if your grocery store has like discount produce and you see oranges, grab the bag of oranges and make your own orange juice. Run it through a little juicer, squeeze every last drop of juice and pour it in a glass, and that is a perfect portion of juice because that is from one fruit. So do that. You can do that with grapefruit, you can do that with blood oranges, or for anything else, you can just run it through a juicer. So if you want mango juice, just run a mango through a juicer. You're not going to end up with a lot of juice, but you probably shouldn't have more than that. And you can also dilute it with water. So that is one idea. And for lemonade, that's really easy to make too. You juice 1 lemon per glassful. So juice your lemon, add some sugar. You can sweeten it with honey or with agave or a simple syrup. The honey will probably give you a stronger flavored lemonade that you might not like, but you can sweeten it that way and then just add water and ice, and that's lemonade. Very simple. Everything's very simple, I keep saying that. Number 19, make your own herbal teas. So this is more along the lines of you growing your own herbs to dry and then turn into herbal teas. So almost anybody can grow mint, whether that's in a pot or whether that's your mint taking over your garden. You can also turn part of your lawn into a tea garden, because why mow something when you can grow something? So you can grow chamomile, you can grow lemon balm, bee balm. If you live in zone 6B to 8, you can grow your own Camellia sinensis tea plant, and you can make green and black and white tea from that. Another thing you can do is forage for your tea. So the way my mother puts it, my great-grandmother was always foraging for tea. She'd be walking with my mom and she'd see horsetail and she'd pick that. Or another thing that she would pick was wild chamomile. Chamomile? I don't know how to pronounce that properly. But that's another thing she would pick. You might know it as pineapple weed. I've tried it out not too long ago and it is delicious. Pick rose hips, pick spruce tips, pick raspberry leaves. Just make sure you know what you're doing and to forage mindfully. Number 20, try making your own hot chocolate. Now, I am guilty of buying hot chocolate mix. Like, this is something that I always buy, and it is my goal this year. I have culinary goals too, but it is one of my goals to start making my own hot chocolate from scratch, because I think all you need is cocoa powder, you need some sweetener, so I'll probably make mine with maple, and then you need milk. That's easy, right? So I'm going to start playing and experimenting and hopefully sharing a recipe with you real soon. Number 21, this is another one that I'm guilty of buying quite frequently, and that is ice cream. Now, I know how to make my own ice cream, so I know it can be a pain to make it from scratch, but I mean, it tastes so much better and it doesn't have any fillers or additives that you don't want. So a lot of ice creams are made with carrageenan, which is a thickening agent. It comes from a seaweed, but it's not the kind of seaweed that's good for you or that you want to eat. So there's that to consider. And then there's all kinds of other gross things in ice cream that you want nothing to do with. So I really do want to stop buying ice cream because I know A, it's not good, and neither is the kind of sugar that is in ice cream. Now, I do sometimes make my own date sweetened ice cream. It's really delicious, and I'm going to work on getting you a recipe next year for a chocolate version of that. It is a guilt-free ice cream. It's one that I don't mind feeding my kid because the good Lord knows that kid has enough energy without me giving him refined sugar. Number 22 is pudding. Stop buying boxed pudding. I included a little recipe insert on the blog for what you can find in instant vanilla pudding, and it's quite scary. Again, I'm saying it's not that hard to make your own, but I also worked in pastry and it was my job to make vanilla pudding pretty much every other day to fill eclairs with and other pastry treats. In the pastry world, it's called pastry cream. You could also call it custard, but it's pretty easy to flavor it. So if you want chocolate pudding, you add cocoa powder. If you want a coffee pudding, you add instant coffee. Like, not hard, right? Number 23, pickles. So this one takes a little bit of planning. You make it at the end of summer. I mean, our great-grandmothers, they had kitchen gardens to harvest. So they would plant their gardens in the spring, just like some of us do. And in the fall, they'd have all this produce that they would have to preserve, otherwise it would go to waste. And that would not happen because our great-grandmothers didn't waste anything, especially mine, who raised her family during pre- and post-war Germany. As I said, there was no food to waste. So everything got put to use, and freezers weren't much of a thing back then yet, so there was a lot of canning and fermentation going on. And when I say pickles, I don't just mean the cucumber pickles that I love. I'm referring to anything, so it could be jalapeno pickles, I am talking about carrot pickles, I'm talking about pickled beets or pickled turnips. Pickles are everywhere, they belong to every culture, and it's something that a lot of us buy now, but it's a lot more rewarding to make your own. And if you get into fermentation, they can even be healthy for you. Number 24, our great-grandmothers, they made their own condiments. Ketchup is a big production. I'm actually making ketchup tomorrow because I have so many garden tomatoes. It's the first time I'm going to make ketchup. I know it's going to be a thinner consistency than the stuff that I get from the store in the bottle, but that stuff is too sweet anyway, and I'd rather make my own and eat my own ketchup than buy it. Another thing that you can make pretty easily is your own mustard, your own mayonnaise, salsa, guacamole, hummus. These things are very easy to make. They're basic recipes. When it comes to things like mustard and mayonnaise, they're not going to be exactly the same from what you get from the store, especially the major commercial brands, but they're going to be better from you. Actually, mustard isn't too bad. Relish, I'd rather make my own. Hummus, definitely make my own. I never buy hummus from the store. And guacamole, the stuff I've had from the store, unless it's from this little taco place in Montreal that I love, I usually make my own. How am I doing on battery? Okay, I'm still good. Okay. Number 25, make your own seasoning blends. So whenever I go to my mom's and open up her kitchen cupboard, I'm always stunned by how many seasoning blends she has. And I don't understand it because she has all of the spices and ingredients she needs to make her own blends. It's not hard to make your own taco seasoning. You just need a good quantity. And I mean, I am somebody who is a spice hoarder. I do have a video on me going through all of the herbs and spices in my collection, but try making your own blends. And something I do is I just make a really big batch of fajita mix, for example. And I put it in a jar and I label it, and whenever I make fajitas, I just grab a couple teaspoons from that, and that's that. I don't have to pull out 8 different spices and herbs every time I need to season something. Number 26 is veggie platters. This one I'm a little bit unreasonable about because it just drives me nuts because A, veggie platters are easy to make. B, the store-bought ones are boring because they're all the same and they come with the same chalky dip. And C, you can avoid the plastic waste because very few people reuse those platters. Anyhow, try making your own. Like, cut up your own carrots. Just get a big bucket going in your sink, like a dish pan full of water and either baking soda or vinegar for a rinse. Peel your carrots, chop them up quickly, maybe some broccoli, maybe some cauliflower, and make your own dip. I have a really great recipe for a kefir ranch dip that goes great for crudities, so challenge yourself to make your own veggie platter the next time you're going to a gathering and you offer to bring the veggies and dip. Number 27, make your own granola. I know everybody seems to have a granola recipe. I know because I considered sharing one of my own, but then I realized the internet doesn't need another granola recipe. It's one of those things I find are super overpriced in stores when it's really easy to make. You just mix rolled oats or quinoa flakes together, and then you get some nuts in there like walnuts, pecans, almonds, chop those up, get them in there, and you can mix in dried fruit. You can get either coconut oil or melt butter and stir that up with some honey or maple syrup. You get some sweetener in there like coconut palm sugar. You can get chia seeds in there. Like, you can put all these healthy things in there, and then you toss it all together. You preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius. You put it all in a parchment lined pan, just spread it out, put it in the oven for 15 minutes, take it out, mix it up, put it back in. Actually, no, you put it in for 8 minutes and then you put it back in for 7 minutes. and you have granola. You let that cool, and then you put it in a jar, and it's usually good for 2 months. Number 28, on a similar note, trail mix. Make your own, don't buy it. You can copycat your favorite trail mix. So if you did the one that's from Kirkland, the one with the M&Ms, you just need to grab cashews, you put almonds in there, salted peanuts, M&Ms if you have to, and I think there's something else, raisins. And you just mix that together and boom, you have trail mix. Just buy what you need from Costco. You can get the nuts that you need in bulk, you can get the dried fruit in bulk. Super simple snack. Number 29, make your own soup. I don't understand the canned soup phenomenon. Yes, it's a super easy dinner, but soup is also really easy to make, especially if you make your own broth and you have like a liter pot of broth in your fridge at all times. I really like the product Better Than Bouillon. Better Than Bouillon. You can buy it in Costco and most grocery stores now. I usually get the veggie one, but you just put a teaspoon of that per cup of water. And I find it works just as well, but that's if I don't have the foresight to pull out broth and it's all frozen in my freezer. So yeah, that's what I use, and I very rarely buy canned soup. I freeze soup. That makes an easy weeknight dinner, so if I'm stumped on the menu or I know we're gonna have a busy night, then I'll just pull a pot or two of soup from the freezer the night before and then heat that up for dinner the next day. Number 30, we're finally there. Try making your own yogurt. I'm guilty of buying yogurt. I usually buy Greek yogurt. It's almost always plain yogurt that I'm buying, but I have made it before, and it's just a matter of inoculating milk with a tablespoon or two of plain yogurt, and you just put that in your oven, or you might even have one of those fancy Instapots that has a yogurt setting. You can make yogurt in there too, but it's about having a very low, stable temperature for the yogurt to basically come alive. Making your own yogurt is not hard to do. It's pretty frugal, and then just make sure that you save a little bit of yogurt from each batch to make a fresh batch. Eventually you will need to buy yogurt instead of using that batch because for some reason the bacteria get weaker over time, unlike some other cultures. So that's just something to bear in mind. But yeah, that is my list of things that we should be making at home instead of buying from the store. I know I just covered a lot. My 3-year-old is awake, so I should probably get to him before he does something crazy like color on my furniture. He did that when I was in the hospital after I gave birth. My in-laws lost my son and they were looking everywhere for him. They were looking outside in the backyard, in the sheds. They could not find him. It turns out he was in the basement. He closed the gate behind him because there's a gate going to our stairs into the basement. He closed the gate behind him, so they saw a closed gate and they didn't think, oh, maybe he's downstairs. So he goes downstairs, finds a pen, and he colors on one of my bucket chairs. I still haven't gotten the stains out. Not that I have tried yet because I'm a busy lady. I mean, I have a 3-month-old and a 3-year-old, so I'm very busy. And I have a blog and a YouTube channel that I'm constantly working on. And then there's my garden and all my fermentation projects and cooking, and I'm still not fully back into it. I'm working my way back up. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Kitchen. If you like this video, again, I hope you'll give this video a thumbs up. And if you are new, please hit subscribe and that bell notification so that you never miss an episode of The Kitchen. And if you've been with me for a while, thank you so much for being here. I am so grateful for you and for you being part of the journey and for making it this far into the video. I know it was a longer one, and I can tell because I'm feeling a little bit hoarse, so I think I'm gonna go make myself a tea. But thank you for being here. I put out one new video every week, so I will be seeing you real soon. Bye! I'm Sylvia from Vintage Kitchen Vixen, where I share tips for simple living, creating memorable gatherings. Memorable. Say it with me, Sylvia. Memorable, where I create memorable gatherings. Oh no, what I struggled with more today, my hair or saying memorable gatherings. The other option is to make overnight oats so that you can grab and grow. So you have a bunch of jars of that in the fridge, and there, you have pancake batter. You have pancake batter. Oh gosh, editing is gonna suck.